Luke Inman at Luke_Spin. And all I want for Christmas, to spoil Kirk Cousins' homecoming at U.S. Bank Stadium.
Hey, this is Arif Hassan with the Wide Left Substack. Is it a revenge game if you score more points for the defense than the offense?
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. Yes, it's just a really bad one.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talks Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another episode of the Minnesota Football Party on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. We do this every Monday, every Thursday. Guys, today we're breaking down a game everybody's had circled on the schedule. Kirk Cousins coming back to the bank, taking on his predecessor, Sam Darnold. Vikings hosting the Falcons. We'll break down our biggest X factors, our biggest keys to the game, plus what is going on with Kirk Cousins right now. And, of course, Ron Johnson stopping by later as well. Before we get into all that, quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. And, of course, don't forget, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch. And if it is a listen, get us on the Locked On Vikings podcast feed, wherever you get your podcast. All right, fellas, Kirk Cousins coming off easily his worst game of the season, 4 picks, including a terrible telegraph pick 6 everybody's still talking about. He leads the league in both interceptions with 13 and fumbles with 12. Just for reference, Sam Darnold has 8 fewer turnovers on the year up to this point, 10 picks, 7 fumbles. And honestly, too, if you dig a little deeper or watched every game, like I know a lot of our listeners have, at least one or two of those fumbles probably could have went the other way in the box score on a couple of those botched pitch to his running backs, Ty Chandler being one of them, Aaron Jones being another one. But anyways, I digress. We finally hit the point now where it feels like Falcons media, Falcons fans alike, they're starting to bang the table for Michael Penix. I'm just pulling up some Falcons stats right now. So offensively, they've been held under 18 points for 3 straight games. Kirk Cousins sub-80 passer rating in 3 straight games. Last week, he actually didn't face that much pressure last week versus the Chargers. Only 1 sack, but that didn't help him any. Kyle Pitts, 0 yards. He's got 9 total yards in his last 2 games. Darnell Mooney, he was red hot. I know he's on the injury report, but he's had less than 30 yards in their last 2 games. Drake London, okay, you got the number 1 alpha guy, 60-plus yards in 3 straight games. 16 targets last week, 9 catches, 86 yards. The running game's been fine. I mean, they got Bijan Robinson, 100-plus yards in 2 of his last 3 games. So here's my point. Like, run game is above average. He's got some weapons. His offensive line held up more than fine last week anyways, only 1 sack. I guess, will someone just start with what is going on with Kirk Cousins right now? Like, get all the people who maybe haven't followed him all year kind of caught up with his struggles as of late. Because it wasn't long ago he was ripping it up, and his stats were some of the best in the league.
Is this not standard Kirk Cousins operation?
Is this not what we do? Do you guys remember? Hello?
This is what I was talking about with the crossover on Crossover Thursday with Aaron Freeman. He does Locked On Falcons, and it's like, no, this happens. Like, he will have his Kirktober, and then he'll crater, and then he'll be fine the next 3 games. Like, this is just what he does.
Yeah. I think that this is likely to have been Kirk Cousins' worst game of the season, and we should anticipate that even this 3-game stretch is going to be what we're going to see. I mean, obviously, as a coach, Brian Flores saying that is just like, you got to keep your defense always aware. But I think that he's legitimately correct when he's saying that Cousins could, turn it back on. I will say, though, that one element that I think has been true for Cousins throughout the year is Burrito Bill in chat said, can we all agree that this is definitely going to somehow be a one-score game? Absolutely. There's no question.
God, yeah.
100%.
Yeah. We will find ways to produce a one-score game out of this. But I will say it seems like the way that Cousins has played this year is that he's making a lot of the same decisions that he's used to making in Minnesota. And a lot of times, I mean, if you recall, they were pretty good decisions. I mean, he's mostly been a good quarterback. The problem is I don't think he has the arm to make good on the same decisions that he made before. I don't think his arm strength is there. And I think a lot of that has to do with him recovering from that injury. We recall week 1, they wouldn't run play action at all for him. And I think that was a mobility thing. I think as we've seen him move around, he's never been the most mobile quarterback, but he certainly had more mobility, I think, in Minnesota than he showed in Atlanta. And I think that same thing is preventing him from driving off his plant foot when he is when he's driving his arm. So that I think this is where his arm strength is gone. And as a product of that, a lot of his okay to good decisions are now bad decisions because he did challenge tight windows. He did throw deep relatively often in Minnesota. He's doing that at, it looks like, a relatively the same rate, but he just doesn't have the goods to pay it off. And so we're not seeing it. And this is a more explosive version, or rather a more explosive, desiring version, I guess. Is somebody who's been as aggressive over the last 2 years in Minnesota than he's been in Washington or the first couple of years in Minnesota. He is refusing checkdowns for deep shots, and that is hurting him given that particular weakness of his. So I think that's the problem. I think that if the Vikings went up against last year's version of Kirk Cousins before the injury, I would be very worried because the way that this defense is weak, the areas where it's weak are the areas that Cousins has historically excelled at. Quick reactions off the blitz for an explosive play against single coverage is the thing he lives on. And I don't know that he can make good on that anymore.
Luke, I wanted to tee you up just before we went live. We were talking about you guys do a crossover episode every week, pending on who the opponent is. You talked with the Falcons, Locked On Falcons guy. What's the vibe right now? Is it doomsday scenario over there? And is
it's in the toilet. It's horrible. Like they're coming off of their Broncos game, getting blown out by Bo Nix, and then a 4-interception disaster against the Chargers.
Tough.
They're and I had to tell him, it's like, no, Kirk bounces back. He does this, but. Like, following up on what Arif said, because like it is different. It is not Kirk Cousins making overly chaotic decisions or getting strip sacked and being like, kind of. It's not the normal Kirk Cousins bad game that we're used to when we saw him have a bad game, where he just kind of wasn't feeling different. Or he wasn't seeing it right. The balls are dying on him, and I do think it's because he can't push off that leg the same way. If you watch his hips, they don't come through the same way that they used to. If you watch like a good pass from 2022 or 2023, the way that he had a lot more torque than he has throwing right now. Especially if you can just push the pocket and get some traffic in there and he feels like he can't step into it, which isn't always true. You don't have to make it true. You just have to make it feel trafficky so he won't step in quite right. And then the ball, it just dies on him. And that's not that crazy for a 36-year-old quarterback, especially coming off the Achilles. Like, that's something that you can predict, and the Vikings, but probably the probability of that weighed into their decision to let him walk. But every old quarterback goes through this. You remember like early 2020 Tom Brady before he figured it out?
Yeah.
And they lost enough games to cost them the division that year. They had to do the Road Warrior thing, and they ended up doing it, winning the Super Bowl.
Good call.
I think kind of end of Packers tenure, Aaron Rodgers had to figure it out. And then in 2022, they got a little better. They kind of ran it back. When you're an old quarterback, suddenly you can't throw the way you used to. And you have to recalibrate what your arm can and can't get away with. And I feel this. Yeah, Roethlisberger too. Like a lot of quarterbacks have to kind of refigure out who they're going to be. I think Joe Flacco did a great job of this. And he's a totally different QB now, and he's still viable as like a backup. But like Cousins has to redetermine what he can and can't get away with, and that offense will have to reshape, and it'll have to happen on the fly, and we're getting them right in the middle of when they're confused about that.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. Now, obviously, this isn't our battle to figure out, and in the grand scheme, it's still early, I guess, in this 2-year, potentially 4-year window, right, with Kirk Cousins. But what was the conversation or vibe as far as like we got to bench Kirk Cousins now? To all your points,
They're not going to do it.
Okay, so
yeah, that's a why not get a look at Kellen Mond? It's about that serious. They're not going to do it.
Got it.
That was the vibe that he gave me.
Okay, no, that's good to go. I wanted some insider info because that's been kind of the hot topic and all the buzz right now. Are they going to bench him? Are they going to trade him? Try to trade him next year? What are we going to see Michael Penix here sooner than later? It's kind of nice just to put that to bed. Why is it in my mind whenever we play like a true mobile dual threat quarterback, I worry so much more about stopping that guy in that offense, I guess, compared to when we play like a more traditional pure drop back passer. I'm like, oh, our pass rush is top 5 in the league and we're going to eat him up. Like Aaron Rodgers, for example, in London. Last week, Kyler tore, the Vikings defense up on the ground. But then I look at our only 2 losses on the year. Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, 2 of the more obviously pure pocket guys in the league. So I got going from Kyler 1 week to Kirk Cousins and everything that you guys just broke down about Kirk and where he's at right now in his game. Kirk obviously fits that mold a little bit more of a Stafford, Jared Goff than obviously a Kyler does. What are the pros and cons, I guess, stylistically, I guess is the right word, when it comes to kind of matching up versus the Vikings defense and the way they're built under Brian Flores?
Yeah, even those guys don't run as much or run more. Even Goff and Stafford, they'll still take off and get you a couple times if you leave it open. Kirk Cousins can't move.
Dude,
he moved a little.
Under rushing 3.5 yards the first 5 weeks before they took it down was automatic money. Every week.
Yeah.
Under 2.5. Oh, he'll fall forward for like 1 on accident.
You need like sneaks.
Under, dude, he will not.
Yeah, that's
do
incredible. That's like when the Brady over 0.5 yards is automatic. And they were like, okay, we're going to stop doing this.
Yeah. No, they took it down after like 5 weeks. They took it down. It's hilarious.
Yeah, he can't run. That was the other thing Aaron told me. Like, we're used to him being a not mobile quarterback and being very frustrated. He is less mobile than we are used to. Like, sometimes he would get out of the pocket and go make a play, or we would run and we'd be like, oh my God, Kirk Vick, and it'd be funny every couple of weeks. He doesn't even do that anymore. He is just like stuck in mud.
Yeah, no, it's so like I think that the thing that like you mentioned, like Stafford and Goff do have the ability to move around in the pocket, create difficult rush lanes for people who might have otherwise had really easy or free rush paths. And we're not gonna probably see that from Cousins, and so that's going to make things easier for the pass rush. But on the other side of that, you mentioned what are the cons of going up against Cousins? I mean, like, he's seen a lot of blitz packages, in part because he's carried a reputation as somebody who doesn't do well against pressure. I don't think the reputation really made sense for the balance of his career, but defensive coordinators have been sending pressure at him. And so he's going to have seen a lot of it. Now, mind you, Flores' pressure package is unique in the NFL. Like, there's not a lot of people who've replicated this, and there's not a lot of people from the NFL who Flores has drawn from to produce this blitz package. So there is some uniqueness to it, but it's not as if Cousins doesn't understand what the shape of the defense will look like once he knows how many rushers there are. And so he'll have some understanding and take advantage of some opportunities that are going to be available to him, or at least he'll try. And here's the thing. A lot of people have gotten upset, even in games where the Vikings only allow like 12 points, with the defense after the defense gives up one big drive. And they're like, Flores has really lost it because he gave up a scoring drive. I just cannot, but that's going to happen probably in this game.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be one drive where Cousins has figured something out. He's got enough on his arm, or there's somebody's going to get beat. The other Drake London, that's it. The other good Falcons receiver. Yeah. That Drake London is probably going to catch something and get some really good yak, and it's going to set up a scoring drive. Everyone's going to be really upset. It's going to be the only touchdown drive of the game. That's going to happen because of Cousins' experience, because of the talent value of all of those skill players. It is a very talented skill group, perhaps overrated going into the season, but still very talented. And maybe not as good enough an offensive line given what they're paid, but still an offensive line that is not like bottom of the league or anything like that. So that is going to help them produce against a really volatile style of defense. That's going to happen. But I think that the cons for Cousins are going to outweigh the pros. I think that lack of mobility against this particular defense, and again, not mobility as in Kyler Murray necessarily, although that was extremely frustrating to watch, but mobility like Matthew Stafford, where it's just like, yeah, you just got to move around a little bit. You just got to move around a little bit, and that'll
the
buy
Joe
you.
Burrow. Although he can rattle off like
Burrow
a 50-yarder
can scoot
on
a
you.
little bit.
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Burrow's
But,
a young Stafford right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a good way to, yeah. But yeah, like the lack of mobility in a real sense for a statue is going to be a huge problem, especially because Cousins likes to hold on to the ball. Not as much as he did in Minnesota generally, because that was an O'Connell thing, but still he likes to hold on to the ball.
Let's see what Ron Johnson has to say. Plus, let's get into our biggest X factors, kind of our keys to the game this Sunday versus Atlanta. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Right now, FanDuel is giving you a chance at a huge return, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. Why I love FanDuel, when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get in on some NFL future action while you're there. Vikes, 17-1 to win it all. Lions, the favorite right now at 3-1. Eagles, Bills, Chiefs right behind the Lions. All of them sitting at 5-1. It's all sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's episode also brought to us by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity. Don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours on end. Right now, Hillsdale College, they're offering you more than 40 free courses, including Introduction to Free Market Economics and The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and all of Hillsdale courses. They're self-paced, so you can start wherever and tune in whenever. Plus, you can go even further with readings, quizzes, and discussions, or just enjoy their daily lectures. Right now, go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. Absolutely no cost, and it's so easy to get started. Hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Go sign up and get registered today. Okay, let's bring on our guy, Ron Johnson. Follow him on the Ron Johnson Show every Tuesday. There it is. Follow him on the Ron Johnson Show every Tuesday. Follow him on X if you haven't already, at 3Ron Johnson. Ron, let me start you with this.
Wait, real quick.
Go ahead.
Play the sound.
Yep. Oh, play the sound. Wow, I've
Play
never
the
played the
sound.
sound before. Hold on.
He's got to figure out how to play the sound.
Gotta pop down cherry.
Vikings defensive end Jonathan Grenard named Defensive Player of the Month for the month of November.
Hey.
Ooh, wow.
about that?
Love that. Leads the league in pressures, I believe, right? Leads the league in pressures. 10 sacks on the year. Van Ginkel, 9. Pat Jones, 7. Those three ripping it up. Ron, I think, okay, Ron, yeah. When you look at the Vikings Falcons quarterback situation, in 2025, who's in a better situation? Which one makes you feel more comfortable?
Like between Kirk and Sam
you
Darnold?
got Kirk and Penix, right? But you're paying top dollar for it, right? But you got Darnold. What are you going to do with Darnold? Are you going to retain him, maybe tag him and trade him? Are you going to keep the cap space, let him move on and roll with JJ? Who's better off right now, and which one do you prefer? Say you're a GM or a head coach, the Falcons quarterback situation next year or the Vikings quarterback situation next year.
Oh, I mean, it's money. So if I'm a GM, I don't give a crap about anything but the money. And so that's what you have to understand is when these GMs are building their teams, they have to build their team, but then they have to look at their salary cap because it's what can I do next? So if I am in these two situations, both teams have a first-round quarterback. So they're both like, you know what, our future probably is okay. But the Minnesota Vikings have a quarterback winning at a higher clip, and he's being paid less than what the Falcons have contributed and guaranteed Kirk Cousins. And if Kirk Cousins were having an MVP season, I think both would be great situations, but he's not. And that's the tough thing. So I would have to go with the Vikings on that one.
Biggest X factors, obviously Vikings won 5 in a row. Falcons losers of 3 in a row. I think about that Vikings red zone defense last week, excuse me. Held the Arizona Cardinals 1 of 6 last week, clamping down when it mattered most. They've held opponents now under 23 points in 4 of their last 5 games. Falcons offense, meanwhile, been held under 18 points 3 straight games. What's one of the biggest X factors or kind of keys to the game right now when you think about this matchup head-to-head? Vikings-Falcons.
Yeah, so for Kirk Cousins, it was a tough stretch. And so for people have to understand, week 10, 11, and 12, those defenses coming into those games, the Saints had only allowed 21 touchdowns. The Broncos had only allowed 18 touchdowns coming to week 11, which was tied for 5th best. And the Chargers had only allowed 15 touchdowns, which was 1st in the NFL. So, and now it's getting worse. Like, it's going to get better. He's dealing with better and better defenses, which is getting worse and worse for him. You look at interceptions. 11 interceptions by the Saints coming into that game, 7 interceptions by the Broncos, 11 interceptions by the Chargers, which was 1st in the NFL. Now you're dealing with the Vikings team who picks the ball off and is opportunistic. You look at sacks. You can go down the line of stuff. 37 sacks by the Broncos going into that game, which was 1st. So every week Kirk Cousins has had to deal with it, and this is the worst week because of what Brian Flores does. If you watch the Buccaneers tape and you go early to one of the games where he dealt with a decent team and were able to get through it, a lot of the things that the Buccaneers did was give Kirk Cousins too clear of a picture, and they didn't blitz enough. And when I say clear picture, I mean there was either a blown coverage, there was a mistake by the safety. And so the touchdown to Kyle Pitts early on, if you watch that, somebody's doing something wrong. And I think it's the box safety because he should have been in cover 2 or some type of quarters. And he runs up to like jump the underneath route, which was covered man to man. It was 2-man, and I think he got the wrong coverage because you see when they motioned, he's pointing to the other safety, basically saying, hey, if he goes across, you're now the safety. I'm going to be this safety. And he just runs up into the box. The other safety runs back to the half, and the other half of the field is wide open. And the way the DB plays it, they get beat by Kyle Pitts. He's playing it as if it's not like if I have 0 coverage, I'm not going to get ragdolled and give up a deep ball. It looked like he felt like he had help over the top and didn't want to give up anything underneath.
Yeah.
And that's where I think Brian Flores is going to be able to get to Kirk Cousins a little bit because he's going to show that kind of look, but he's not, hopefully, knock on wood, he's not, as his DPs are not going to screw up because we've seen Josh Metellus pointing to Cam Bynum or Cam Bynum pointing to Harrison Smith like, wait, who was supposed to be there? Let's hope this is one of those games where they realize Kirk Cousins is not running the ball. He's not taking off and going to get 18 to 20 yards and slide like he's playing baseball. He wants to sit in that pocket. He wants to get rid of it like Eli Manning did when he faced Mike Zimmer and just throw it into the ground anytime he feels like he's about to get hit. And I think that's why I think the Vikings are going to handle him well. But yeah, Kirk Cousins, the last 3 games compared to the 3 games before, it's just night and day. And that's what I looked at. Like, because you can talk about games 7 through 9, because everybody wants to talk about games 10 and then 10 through 12. But games 7 to 9, they went 2-1. He was 75% completions, which was 5th. He threw 8 touchdowns, which was 2nd. His passer rating was 120, which was 5th, and he threw 35 touchdowns. And so, and the thing that stayed the same, it was 7 sacks in the the last 3 compared to the 3 before that. So it was the same amount of pressure on him. I just think he was like, I hate to say the word, seeing ghosts. Like, I think he was thinking something was there that wasn't going to be there.
Hey.
Well.
My, how the tables have turned.
Like, it just felt like he was like trying to go through too many progressions versus saying, let me just get rid of this or let me just throw it out of bounds, forcing balls in there. And when you can't do that when you're playing teams that can catch the ball, like defenses that can catch the ball and they play to get interceptions, which he faced the last 3, and this is another one against the Vikings. You can't do that. You can't try to fit the ball in the tight spaces. And even when you watch him make some of those throws, like the touchdown to Kyle Pitts, he's like throwing with his feet in cement. Like, he's not stepping up into the pocket. I don't know if he's a little nervous about guys being around his feet, but he doesn't have like the free will Kirk Cousins that we saw where he would like zing it and then get out the way. Like, I just don't feel like his mobility is what it used to be. And it's probably gonna take another couple months for his Achilles to fully full normal again. Like, it's people forget about scar tissue, stiffness, like getting out of bed every day after working out. So, I think Peyton Manning, I forgot what Peyton Manning had. I think it was like a heel or ankle or something when he was with the Broncos, but Peyton didn't practice until Friday. Like, he was in the pool on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with a helmet on, listening to practice. and then he would go out there on Friday and then practice Saturday a little bit and then play Sunday. And so I know Kirk can't do that because he's new there and he has to learn it, but and it's not his offense. Like the Broncos, it was Peyton's offense. They basically, hey, come win us a Super Bowl and give us what you got. The Falcons aren't doing that. The Falcons are, look, we got to make this viable for if we got to yank you at some point and Michael Penix takes over. And so that's the tough thing for Kirk.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. Arif, what do you got for Ron?
Yeah. So we know that Cousins is more of a paint by numbers quarterback than he is somebody who like hunts matchups and stuff like that. But I'm still worried about some of these matchups, especially Kyle Pitts. Now, Pitts has been really up and down throughout his career. Obviously, had a great rookie season. Hasn't produced much since then. I think a lot of people have blamed the quarterback. Some people are kind of coming around saying maybe not the quarterback, maybe it is Pitts. I don't know. I'm worried about this guy. What are kind of the biggest opportunities for Pitts in a world where either Cousins is playing well, or I don't know, maybe he's looked too close at the glass of rocks, and now Michael Penix is out there. Like, what are the biggest opportunities for Pitts?
Yeah, and so for Kyle Pitts, he's a matchup nightmare when you go man. So you can't put a linebacker on him, you can't put a corner on him, you can't put a safety on him, and so he's a matchup nightmare. Like his height and size when it comes to corners and safeties is unmatched, and then his speed when it comes to linebackers and his route running ability is unmatched. Like he ragdolled a nickel corner trying to cover him in man against the Buccaneers, and it still was a flag because they said the defender was holding on, and he still got free and had like 10 yards of space. So if I'm the Minnesota Vikings, knowing that he is that guy, I'm looking at using somebody like Cam Bynum. Now, I don't think they're going to do it, but I would. He's a former corner that can play safety. He's strong enough. Like you got Josh Metellus, but honestly, you might want to look at one of your more physical cornerbacks or taller cornerbacks. That's why a guy like with Caleb Evans, this would be a perfect game for him. And it sucks that he's not there because with his height, you can match him up with Kyle Pitts and then just give him a little bit of help over the top, but he's not running away from a Caleb Evans. He's not going to run away from some guys like that, but he can overpower Byron Murphy. He can throw the fade route. And again, Kirk's not going to hunt for the matchup, but I got a chance to talk to Andrew Sendejo last night for about an hour. And the one thing we talked about was like Harrison Smith knowing Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins knowing Harrison Smith, and as well as Byron Murphy and some of these other guys. And so what Kirk Cousins is doing now too is thinking like, what do these guys struggle with? Like who struggles in man? And I think Kirk, because Kevin O'Connell brought this, that Kirk is a perfectionist. He hates throwing interceptions to the point where we said he was a little too conservative. And so if there's any game, and I love what Andrew Sendejo said, he was like, if you have your ex-girlfriend coming to Christmas and your new wife or girlfriend is coming there, you're going to want to make sure you do your best. Like you're going to want to make sure you guys are matching PJs or matching suits and dress. Like you want that ex to be like, man, he looks good. And so that's what Kirk wants. When Kirk walks back into the building, like, I don't know what suit, but I know Julie Cousins has taken that Kohl's cash and she's went and picked him out the perfect outfit for Sunday.
Like, gone wild on Black Friday.
He might be in some Kobe, like bad Grinch shoes. I mean, you never know. Like, I just know.
They got that at Kohl's, Ron?
in the holiday section.
They got a Nike section over there at Kohl's. Like, come on now. So there might be some leftover Kobe Bryant Nike t-shirts in the Nike section of Kohl's. But like I wouldn't put it past Kirk to really like, one, you don't want to make too much of it. But I love what Deion Sanders says about these type of games. Like, don't let pressure be like your like don't be scared of it. Apply the pressure. Like, talk about it. Be the guy to say, you know what? Yeah, I know what I'm facing. They don't know what they're going to see in me because they haven't seen my offense. I've seen this defense. But the one thing he hasn't seen, and this is why it makes this matchup and tough for Kirk, Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Gennard. Luke brought it up. Defensive player of the month. Kirk hasn't seen them. He's seen Danielle Hunter and knows, okay, I can throw a ball over Danielle Hunter's head. He never know it's coming. You can't do that to Andrew Van Ginkel. You try to do that little jump over to Bijan Robinson in the flat, it might be a pick six. And that's why my bold prediction on the football thing yesterday was the football show was 3 turnovers. I just feel like Kirk is not aware of how quick, like a Dallas Turner or Andrew Van Ginkel or Gennard, it sucks that Ivan Pace can't play, but Blake Cashman, how quick these guys get in and can get to him. Like he knows Harrison Smith's kind of like, he's not coming. Like he's just showing, I know he's not coming, but he doesn't know the rest. And I think that's what we're forgetting is the pressure when he gets to Kirk. If he's in the grass, he's willing to throw some stupid stuff. And that's why I feel like it either could be like a strip sack two times maybe, or, 2 interceptions, because these guys are going to give him looks. Like Brian Flores, if there was anything that would make Brian Flores work a little bit harder, is this game, because he's also seen Kirk Cousins. He knows what he's about. And he's probably going to Kevin O'Connell all week like, yo, what does Kirk do when I do this? Or what would Kirk think when I did this? And they're going to play that chess match.
Yeah, there's a couple of pieces out there that suggest that Brian Flores is doing exactly that. Every time he draws up something in the game plan, he goes to Kevin O'Connell and he's like, so what does Kirk do here? What about here? What about here? What about here? What about here?
Yeah. Like, I mean, you have to, though. That's human nature. Like that's like being in a company, like General Mills or something, and you don't ask the kids of the employees, what cereal do you like? Like, that is literally
They use your resources.
Right. Yeah. Like, oh, we're just gonna come out with these new chocolate chip cereal bars. But we're not gonna actually get, like, no, you go give it to a couple kids. What do y'all think? And they're gonna be honest because they're related to you. Like, oh, this sucks. Don't do this. Or
they're gonna be honest because they're kids, man. They don't care.
So that's where I think Brian Flores is smart. Like, he's going to Kevin O'Connell like, hey, here's the look. What would Kirk do here? Here's the look. What would Kirk do here? If I drop Josh Metellus and Cam Bynum into the box, and I leave Harrison Smith up top with like maybe Shaq Griffin deep, and I'm giving you the thirds look, what's the chances Kirk would understand I'm switching to 2? Like all that kind of stuff, because when that happens, if you switch to 2 and he thinks he has the fade route, that safety's over the top. And now that's an interception by whoever's. And again, that's why I love that Brian Flores is willing to put Byron Murphy at safety every once in a while to say, hey, go play cover 2 safety and pick this off. The one person I do not like back there, and I hate to say it's my guy, I don't like Josh Metellus back there in the cover 2. I really don't. Like, I think he's a box linebacker, nickel type guy. I don't really think he's a true back end safety all the time. I just feel like a lot of the mistakes we see are deep ball issues. We always see Josh Metellus crossing our face on the highlight of the other team. And so I just hope Brian Flores realizes that too. Like, hey, let's let Josh do what he's great at, which is in the box, hitting people, covering linebackers, covering running backs, covering tight ends in that space. He's not a deep guy. Like, you can't put him on Kyle Pitts. I wouldn't do it.
Ron, yesterday, PJ Fleck said they're looking for a transfer QB in the portal next year. Who are you looking at? Who you want it to be?
There's a lot out there. I know the kid from USC, Miller Moss. I don't know if he would come to Minnesota, but I know he's in the portal. You kind of have to wait because we have a couple days now. So signing day was Wednesday. You're going to have a couple days of all the schools, like whether it's 20 guys sign, 18 guys sign. And I talked to PJ about that. He said their goal is to try to sign like 15 to 18 guys, knowing if other guys, because Jordan Newman just hit the portal. He had 2 other guys hit the portal that don't play. And that's what I tell people too. Look at who hits the portal. If it's a starter, then you could be like, oh, there's some going. If it's a guy that's like a junior or sophomore and he hasn't played in 3 or 4 years, like, of course he's going to leave. Like, he just feels like he's never going to play and he'd rather go to Northern Illinois or Illinois State and play. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so when you look at the quarterbacks, we got a couple more days of this because you got bowl games. You got some guys that haven't even declared that they want to get in the portal. So I'd say after the bowl season, I'll have a better idea. But USC's Miller Moss, which is kind of weird to do it that quick. But I think he just wanted people to know, like, hey, look, before you go sign this quarterback, I'm out here. But again, I don't know if he would come to Minnesota, but he is in the Big Ten. He saw PJ Fleck and them live. He saw what this offense can do. The only issue I would have with going to get a big time quarterback like that is, like, does Drake Lindsey sit another year? Like, is he okay with sitting another year, or is this more of a we got to get a solid backup? Because numbers, I mean, you look at numbers right now, they technically only have, I think, 2 scholarship quarterbacks, and you want to make sure you have some guys that if somebody gets hurt, you have a guy behind them.
Hey, Ron, one more quick one, then we'll get you out of here, because you mentioned a lot of, you talked about Josh Metellus, maybe don't love him in that cover 2, playing man coverage versus a guy like Kyle Pitts. Stephon Gilmore, likely out. So are we going to get more Fabian Monroe perhaps, or Dwight McGlothern, the UDFA? How much does that impact things, I guess, defensively? And do you prefer one backup over the other, seeing what you saw last week from Fabian?
I like Monroe. Like, he did his, I mean, the one mistake I said, and I said it when I was watching it live in the stadium, stop talking. Like, stop talking to like, don't poke the bear. Like, you get one stop, great. Get one stop. Just don't go back to the huddle. Like him running his mouth and then eventually they catch a touchdown on him. It's like, dude, you spoke that. Like you spoke that into existence. I hate DBs that do that. Like, because like Travis Hunter's not running his mouth. Like he's making plays and he's doing TikTok dances. Like, don't talk. So I do like Moroto because he wasn't afraid to challenge the receivers. Like he wasn't afraid to get caught up in the bump and run situation.
Yeah.
He wasn't he was kind of always around. Like again, some of the throws were great throws, great catches. But he was always in position, and that's what I think is going to matter the most. Also, when you think about coverage ideas, when you look at this Falcons team, I like Monroe against Drake London. I don't think Drake London has the speed to really run by him. Because I think Byron Murphy, you're going to have to keep him around like more than because they do motion a lot and they try to give Kirk a clear picture, which everybody should. But they try to give Kirk a clear picture of what the coverage is going to be. So I don't know if Flores is going to try that LA Rams, which I hope he doesn't do, but that LA Rams situation where it's like, hey, when somebody motions, we still want to play this coverage, but you guys got to talk about it. I struggle with that because, and I asked Blake Cashman about that. I'm like, how often can you veto if you hear these guys chirping? And he was like, it's tough because they have their coverage rules and we have our rules up front. So we don't really, he's like, he can't really affect. It's more Harrison Smith vetoing it. So I hope Harrison Smith kind of can see what they're thinking and be like, and whatever, I think they do this or they do that. They get off of it and say, hey, we're just going to. Like, don't do what we were going to do, go to, because clearly Kirk either is in a situation we can't defend or he's going to, like, the possibility we're going to get killed. And so I hope, like, Harrison, and I know, and again, this is a game Harrison Smith has circled to. Like, when you play your old friends, like, I don't care what you say, because you talk about practice all the time. And I interviewed Blake Cashman this week. That one's out for you guys to go check it out on YouTube and around Joshua. And I asked Blake about how much, like, because when former teammates play and all, and he was like, man, even current teammates still argue. He said Tristan Jackson and Byron Murphy argued for like 20 minutes the other day about basketball. He said it started in the training room, it went to the hallway, it went to the locker room, and then going out to the field, they were still arguing about, you can't guard me, I'll kill you in basketball. And, like, oh, if you play receiver, I could play DB and stop you. Just imagine how many times Kirk has made a throw and guys are in practice like, dude, if you were my teammate, I'd have killed you. Like, they are looking forward to this. And that's why it's going to be such a fun game to see, because come on, Reeve, you know that. Like, we see the training camp all the time where guys are like, oh, you lucky, man. If I wasn't your teammate, man, I would have murdered you. Like, so like, some of these guys have been waiting to hit Kirk Cousins and waiting to like yell at Kirk Cousins and pick and Harrison Smith. Like, think about how many times he's wanted to pick Kirk Cousins off and done it in practice, and it doesn't count to his stats. So I think that's one of those ones. I'm not saying he'll be petty, but if I'm Harrison Smith, he gets a pick from Kirk, I'm keeping that ball. And then one day I'm going to call Kirk like, hey, can you sign this for me? Because I'm going to the
hey, do you mind?
I'm going to the Hall of Fame, and I would like to say, like, I picked off my teammate, at home, so like I forgot the guy that did it. He said he intercepted one of Tom Brady's last balls, and he asked him, could he sign it? Like, it was his last Patriot
goes
throw,
so
I think,
hard.
when he got to the Bucks. It was his last Patriot interception. He was like, hey, can you sign the ball? Like, that was your last Patriot throw, and I picked you up. Or your last Patriot interception. I got it. Can you sign this for me? Like, so, like, I just know these guys are all –
right? Like,
yeah, these guys are all hungry because Blake didn't play with Kirk, so he kind of was like, like, he was like, he knows everybody else. Like, they know us, and we know him. But he's like, I also didn't play with Kirk, so I don't really have that like same like, oh, I really want to do this. It's just like, for him, it's like, hey, there's another chance for us to go 11-2, and maybe, because everybody's forgetting there's a short week tonight, the Packers might beat the Lions. Like, don't be afraid to like bet on the Packers, because this is one of those short week games that if the Packers come out hitting on all cylinders and the Lions have looked a little vulnerable early, at least not late, early. If the Packers can get a lead early, I don't know, the Lions might be in trouble.
Oh, Ron Johnson, you're the best. One of a kind, elite football mind. Check him out every Tuesday in the Ron Johnson Show. Follow all his work on X at 3Ron Johnson. We'll talk to you on the Vikings postcast Sunday after Vikes Falcons.
This week's going fast. This week went fast.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? Yeah. Ron Johnson, ladies and gentlemen.
By the way, if Kirk happens to do something special, over under on him going shirtless, headed back to Atlanta
with the chain.
Headed back,
headed back.
I think in the plane,
I think that's got to be Yeah, that's got to be the favorite, right? I mean,
Because I know he's going to walk into the trap. He wants to walk into the Vikings trap and take over the trap.
Right.
So and I don't know if Kirk realized what a trap is. Like, I don't think his dad's too happy. He's talking
less
about
than 50-50. Kirk knows what a trap is.
I'm like,
yeah.
Do you know
He's
what a
just
trap
rolling
house
with it.
is? Like, have you been to a trap house?
No.
You need to call the Migos. Call up Quavo.
Does his dad understand this enough to be angry?
Is that
or?
where they keep all the Coles overstock in the trap house? Is that what that is?
Kirk showed up to a trap house with Cole's cash. Like, hey, let me get a brick.
You said you're going to
I got
Magic
5,000.
City?
They're like
You said you go to
5,000
Magic
what?
City? I love magic shows. Let's go.
5,000 in Cole's cash.
Cole's
Sir,
cash.
That will not get you a brick. They might give him a
See
might
that right
give
there?
him a
That's
dime
an
bag,
IOU.
though. He
That's
might get
just-
a dime
This is a
bag.
family show, folks.
Yeah.
We love
But the Magic City, that would be
Little
hilarious.
brick and
If
mortar.
Kirk
Magic
takes-
City,
Oh, yeah.
it's a
We're
really
gonna-
fun place you can go and take your
We're
kids
going to
and,
see
and meet
things
wizards.
disappear.
And
Yeah.
She made my money disappear. It was a
They got
magic
good
show.
wings. Whichever one. They got
The
good
wings are
Oh,
delicious.
man.
I've heard. I've heard.
I've
they're
So I've
delicious.
heard. So I've heard.
So I've heard Shaq say. Shaq said the wings are delicious.
Chef's
All right,
kiss.
Ron,
Yes,
that's
yes.
enough.
All
We gotta
right.
go, man.
All right.
Appreciate
all right.
you guys.
All right. All right. My producer's saying, play us out. Play us out. All right. All right. On to the next ad read we go. One more thing I want to bring up about Sunday's matchup. Then we'll get to our weekly gambling picks. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. Funny how that works, huh? Well, with Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about those gotcha prices again, because with Mint Mobile, when they say $15 a month, when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages, because with Mint Mobile, they're here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered to the nation's largest 5G network. To get this new customer offer and your 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month with Mint Mobile on mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. $45 upfront payment required. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for more details. All right, just one more thing here before we get to our gambling picks. I was looking at some stats, obviously, from last week and overall season. I just want to point this out. Falcons defense had the game of the year last week versus Herbert. 3 of 11, Herbert was on third
such
down.
a bummer.
Yeah, well, what? I mean, let me rip off a couple of these stats and then we'll get to it. But what happened? Was that an anomaly or what? Herbert, 147 yards passing, 86 passer rating. But on the season, the Falcons defense, they ranked 28th in passer rating allowed with just over 100. They only had 10 sacks on the year, dead last in the league. They show up, they sack Herbert 5 times on only 24 dropbacks too. So it's not like he dropped back 50 plus times or something like that. Falcons run defense, okay, it's been middle of the pack, kind of average, maybe slightly above, 4.4 yards per carry. But against the Chargers rushing attack, They held it down, man. A 3.3 yards per carry. I think it was 56 yards on 17 or 18 attempts. So you look at the box score is my point here. You see the final score. Does not tell the whole story. Falcons defense specifically kind of, again, coming off their defensive masterpiece of the year so far. 17 points. Herbert can't crack a $150, 5 sacks. The run defense, 3.3 yards per carry. Then I think about Darnold getting sacked 5 times last week. 8 quarterback hits. He's been sacked 3 or more times in back-to-back games. The run game yards per carry last week for the Vikes was okay. I think it was 4.4, 4.5, but 15 attempts, 68 rush yards, not really what you want. So which Falcons defense is more likely to show up is what I'm getting at here. The one coming off this masterpiece or the one that they've really looked like and played like all year long, which is pretty average at best. What happened versus the Chargers? Does anybody know?
I think it depends on turnovers. That has to be the thing. And somebody like Jesse Bates, people that can get their hands on it. Can Aaron Jones get this ball security thing under control? I I think the way that they like to play, they like cover 6. They like cover 3 as much as anybody. They like cover 6 more than other teams. I think the only other defenses that are like that are like a kind of Fangio style, which means that there will be zones. You can sit back. They play it conservative. You will be able to get a lot of completions, basically, and they try to keep things in front of them. But that blows up really bad if that means you have to string together a 10, 11, 12 play drive to score, and then you take a sack or you take a strip sack and like a one turnover that can blow that all up. It like takes so much work to get yourself back into it.
For sure.
And yeah, like to make it like you have to work so hard to get there. That's, I think, what it is. And if you can get explosives on that, then I think it's curtains. Because that's all they're doing is they're selling out to prevent explosives. So if you can get explosives anyway, like you're in. But it's the same thing as like any Vikings game, right? It's turnovers, and that explains that box score too. 4 interceptions, man. That's the key. That's what happened. Sold that defense, that defense out, and that defense still, kept things under control. So
sure.
Yeah, if they take care of the ball,
that changes things for sure.
Priority 1, and priority 2 is get explosives, and I think it has to be in that order.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I also like the Chargers game is kind of a unique one because Ladd McConkey is like fighting through. That's what I was like on my phone. I was just trying to figure out like all 3 injuries that he was fighting through in that game. Now, mind you, he has like 4.7 yards per out run in that game. They heavily relied on him. 12 targets, 9 receptions, 117 yards. He had a great game, but yeah, right. But like to make him the focal point of that offense while he's suffering from injuries, one of which led, I think, to a fumble, if I remember correctly. They needed more in terms of like what they were scheming open for him. So like he ends up with like 4 yards after the catch per reception, which is not like bad or anything like that. But given the design of that offense against that team, they needed more from him and they couldn't get it. I think some of that has to do with injury. Also, like, I mean, Justin Herbert's having an outstanding year, but like Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnston, and like when you don't have McConkey, which is just I hate saying his name. When you don't have McConkey producing for you, Will Dissly's been having an outstanding. He's been a great year.
He's been overachieving.
But like it is a weird situation when you're like top 5 receiving tight end Will Dissly. But yeah, no, so I don't know how much of that is replicable because the Vikings just have an overwhelming skill matchup advantage here, and they need to like use it. Obviously, they need to like amplify it. So I don't think that this particular game against the Chargers serves as much of a warning sign or an indicator, canary in the coal mine, that the Falcons defense is suddenly like good after suffering for mediocrity for so long. I think that there's a huge problem. They don't, as someone in the chat points out, they don't have a good pass rush. Haven't had a good pass rush since like John Abraham, who I think is Hall of Fame eligible now. Like it's been a bit.
Wow,
is what I'm saying.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Poor Grady Jarrett just sitting in there.
Yeah, I know, man.
I think they manned up
pretty good. Yeah.
I think that if I remember from a crossover, we talked about this. I think they manned up a little bit more the last couple weeks, instead of being the zone team. And maybe that worked out well. But this is sort of a crossroads for that. Like, who you manning up on Justin Jefferson, or do you want to go back and zone that off?
That's a good segue. Burrito Bill asked, what's the secondary matchup look like for JJ and Addison? And maybe that'll be a good segue into our gambling picks here in a second. But anybody want to take a stab at that and what they've seen just on film last week, all season, what the Falcons like to do?
I think when teams stopped triple teaming Justin Jefferson, they saw what happened last week, which was 99 yards plus 35 more on penalties, which, mind you, like I pointed out on Monday, he like leads the league in receiving yards plus induced penalty yards, right? Like they know what that looks like when he is not triple teamed. And I think they might want to go back. Like I know that Addison going off for 169 nice yards 2 weeks ago was like a good warning sign for what happens when you do that. But I think they still want to over-focus on Jefferson and create opportunities for Addison and Hawkinson. I think defenses typically are just much more comfortable with that because like if you mess up with Justin Jefferson, it could just be a 97-yard touchdown. Like that could just happen. And so I think they want to avoid that and create a couple more opportunities for Hawkinson and Addison, which, mind you, has led to 100-plus yard games for both of them, sometimes in the same game. So it's definitely a pick your poison scenario, but I think that they want to put some more eyes on Jefferson.
For sure. Yeah.
I believe Mike Hughes is starting for them right now.
Oh my.
Oh, it's over.
Oh my goodness.
AJ Terrell and Mike Hughes. That's what it says on Our Lads, but I that's just Our Lads. I don't know if that's actually the guy or.
Yeah.
Wow.
They got Clark Phillips. They drafted last year. I remember liking him a little bit coming out, although he's more of a nickel type.
Yeah, nickel guy. Yeah,
like
big
him.
hitter, but definitely just a nickel guy.
D. Alford. Kevin King on this roster. This is an interesting group.
Kevin King.
Another Kevin King game, huh?
Wow. Okay.
Just keep playing him somehow.
Interesting games within the games there, though. I guess I haven't really done a deep dive on that depth chart, especially in the secondary like that. So some interesting names. That's
new plan.
Yeah.
Find Mike Hughes. That's
Mike Hughes banged up. Mike Hughes, by the way, he's on the injury report.
Let's get into
I believe
our
in him.
gambling.
I think he can fight through it.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Yep, please.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
On the outside, by the way. I don't know. Well, I don't know if they're.
I don't know how he is on the
rotating him a
inside.
bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in first place. Gambling update. I'm in first place. $700 lead over a Reef. No big deal. It's not a big deal. A Reef, you got a $90 lead on Sam. Sam with about a $30 lead on Braun. So still anybody's game. This goes through the regular season, correct? Regular season.
Yeah.
So I mean,
We have an
got
extra
a handful of games
playoff
here left
thing, but I don't know what that's for.
Right. Okay. So still anyone's game. I have Sam's picks. He texts them to me. Today's order, it goes a Reef, Sam, Braun, then me. So a Reef, you're up first. Again, in second place, $90 lead over Sam. What direction?
When I looked at this yesterday, I really liked Justin Jefferson. He was at 81. Now I think he's at like 86.
Mhm.
And so ripped to that. So I'll take TJ Hawkinson over 37.5 at minus 114. Minimum, which I think is 140, right? It's just the week number times 10.
I think, well, Sam said $150 bets.
He's probably right.
So probably that's the minimum. Yeah.
Yeah.
All you guys been on the Hawkinson train for a while, and I get it.
It's been pretty good for us.
Miss out. Yeah.
Minimum last week was 130, by the way. So I think it would be 140 this week.
Got
Yes.
it.
Okay. 140.
So we'll put
Okay. Yeah.
140.
There we go.
Got it. Hawkinson over 37.5 minus 114 at 140. So Sam's picks. Okay, Sam wants the Bears plus 3.5 parentheses new coach bump. Bears plus 3.5.
Shoot.
$150 bet. Bears plus 3.5. He gave me a
I'm just not
backup if that
touching
was
that game.
Yeah.
I can't figure out that game. Bears 49ers.
Yeah.
I was going to take it no matter what the spread was.
Oh, were you really?
Because of the new
funny.
coach bump. I think getting Eberflus out of there energizes that team so good. I'm so happy that didn't happen right before they played the Vikings.
Oh,
Do you see? Because I not just the Athletic, but also Courtney Cronin, old friend Courtney Cronin, over at ESPN also had like a little inside the Bears. Lost the locker room is such a mild way to put it. I've never heard of a player interrupting a post game speech. That's crazy. Anyway,
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Insane. That's they will come out juiced in that one.
Okay, on to Luke.
I still like Justin Jefferson, but I like him for receptions. I think the Falcons are pretty good at letting you rack up receptions. If Justin Jefferson isn't getting going in this one, I see it as the kind where they give him like 2 underneath ones to get him going. And so even like a strong second half would be possible. So I like Justin Jefferson over 6.5 receptions at plus 116.
Over 6.5 at plus 116, you said?
Yeah, and I'll put the minimum on that.
last week opened at 6.5 and then moved all the way up to 7.5 right before the game. So
Man.
Yeah,
So
and I don't
he's
think he
moved quite a
got
bit.
close to that, right? Or no, he did.
no, you got 7, I think.
He did get 7?
Yeah.
Wow, they got you.
Oh
Okay.
no, I got in at 6.5. Trust me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to me, and all right. I hit on this last week. I'm going to roll with it again. Vikings to win by 1 to 6 points. That's plus 300.
Okay, where did you find that?
Sorry,
So
what?
you go to
Is
so
it
you go to
scoring?
so you go to the Vikes. Yep, it's under scoring. So you go to the Vikes,
Oh,
and then you go to scoring.
Oh, is he doing
Like
the same?
honestly, I'm
I was distracted
tempted.
for a second. Is he doing the same trick again?
Yeah, it's a trick. It's a cheat code. I am
Yeah, okay, I
tempted.
see.
I am tempted to do 7 to 12, but I'm just gonna roll with it. I'm just gonna roll with it. So
The
1
Green
to
Goblin
6.
mask is looking right at you.
Oh, get out of my head, dude. Get out of my head. Plus 300. I'll go minimum bet. And then I've been riding the Seattle train. What could go wrong? Another divisional matchup in Arizona, plus 2.5. What could go wrong? At least we have fun during these. So minimum bet on that as well. Plus 2.5 for Seattle. That is at minus. I'll look it up. Luke, go ahead.
I hate all of these spreads, so I'm taking a Jets under. Jets Dolphins under 44.5 for the minimum.
44.5. Yeah. I wasn't looking at the over-unders. I should have. That's a good one to take. 44.5? Jesus.
I've lost every single time I've bet
in
on a Jets
Miami?
game so far, so I feel like this is really dumb. But also, my instincts are bad, so I'm
That's at minus 105.
good with going against them.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so back to Sam. Sam wants, for prop, I'll take Vikings first quarter minus 1.5 at plus 116. Vikings first quarter minus 1.5 plus 116. There you go.
That's Sam.
That's Sam.
Yeah.
Yep, that's Sam's.
Thinks they're going to come out hot, huh?
Yeah.
Hasn't been that way for a while.
No, it hasn't. Okay. Back to Arif. Arif, you got Hawkinson over 37.5.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the McConkey injury, I would be taking the Chargers right now at plus 3.5 over the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's time, right? The Chiefs, they've gotten away with it for too long.
Yes.
The Chargers are the team that live in
Can't
enough
keep
devil
getting
magic.
away with
They know
this.
devil
Right.
magic.
Yeah, right. It's
It is a familiar adversary to them.
right. Yeah, they were molded by it, adopted by it, etc.
Yeah.
But it's without a receiver. That's going to be tough for me. So, I'm going to go with distrusting the Raiders. That has worked for me for quite a while, multiple seasons. I'll take Tampa Bay minus 6.5 at minus 110 odds at home versus the Raiders. Again, the minimum.
140.
Yeah, I learned my lesson. I'm not chasing that dollar anymore.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Seems
It's been
tempting.
so tight. It might come down to that dollar.
Yeah, right. I'm just steadily losing like $9 to $15 a week. I can't. At this rate, Sam will catch up by the end of the season.
All right, give me a before we get out of here.
Oh,
one
my
minute
under
left.
was minus 105. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. All right, minus 105. Dolphins, Jets in Miami. Is that in Miami?
In
Or is it in
Miami.
New York. In Miami,
Yeah.
minus 105.
Yeah.
Any predictions tonight? Huge game for the Vikes in the NFC North.
I've gotten a lot of questions about whether or
Packers,
not to
Lions.
cheer for the Packers or for the Lions, right? Because you cheer for the
Well,
Lions so that the Packers are not in
Packers
contention
are out of
fifth
it.
or sixth. Yeah.
yeah.
And
yeah.
I get
I
that.
think you want to
but I
beat
just
him,
think,
right?
yeah. Well, if they could tie, that'd be. But
That's perfect. That's what we root
Yeah.
for.
Tie.
yeah, root for the
It's
tie.
okay to be Team
But-
Meteor, though. Hate watch.
Yeah, you do want the meteor, but I think that strategically, I think the difference between the first seed and any other seed is so much larger
It's so big.
than the differences between fifth, sixth, and seventh.
Yeah.
And I can't predict who the matchups will be for fifth, sixth, and
Right.
seventh.
Right.
So I would just rather bite the bullet,
Yep.
have the Packers win,
Yep.
put the Vikings in essentially the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Because if they win out, they get the first seed,
Go
right?
big or go home.
And
Let's
find
go
a way
for
to
it.
get the first seed. So I'd rather aim for greatness and get the bye.
for sure.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
bite my teeth for a Packers win. Than
Man, it
anything
wasn't
else.
that long ago the top 2 seeds got those buys, and then ever since they've changed,
And that was
man,
better. That was better. That was a better system.
It was. It's so valuable
I
now.
But then
hate
Jordan
Such
Love
an
wouldn't have
advantage to get that
smoked
1 seed.
Dallas in AT&T. We would have lost out on all of that Mike McCarthy hilarity.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
That's a good call. All right.
Let's get rid of the 7 seeds again. Please, God.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be a great game, though. Huge implications, again, not only for the Vikes, but the NFC North, the NFC Conference for sure. I'm with you. I would love to see what is the spread even? I would love to see a Packers upset. I guess I didn't even look at
I
the
think
spread.
it's Lions by 3. It's in Ford Field. Lions by 3.5 right now.
I saw the
over under
over-under is
51.5.
51
So
and a
Lions
half.
would be
Got it.
slight given the changes in how home is calculated. Lions would be slight favorite on a neutral field.
Yeah, I need the Packers to just. I don't need them to necessarily win because if they lose, that's still funny. I can absolutely have plenty of fun with that.
Plenty of content there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's we're winners either way.
Right.
But I need the Packers to put out the this can't just be another Lions curb stomping. I need someone to figure it out and put the tape out there that the Vikings can then use for their matchup.
Yeah. Let's get out of here. Huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. After you're done with this, go check out Luke on Locked On Vikings. Arif always ripping it up over at the Wide Left Substack. Anything new you've been working on that we can go check out over there? Vikings related, by the way.
Mostly just publishing Luke's almanac on the Brian Flores defense. So he wrote 4,000 words in
It's
part
4,000
one.
words, and it's part 1.
Yeah, on part
Holy
1, which is
smokes.
mostly focused on the fronts and the front 7 design. Front 7 is kind of loose given how Brian Flores designs the defense, but
Yeah,
the front
the run, the stuff in the box,
yeah. And so
run
that's
defense.
what that is.
Yeah,
And then part 2, I anticipate. I mean, he hasn't told me. Part 2, I anticipate is about coverage.
pass rush and coverage. It's kind of the run game and the pass game. That's how I divided it.
Yeah. And so we've got that going on. For me, I don't have a ton of Vikings specific stuff. Obviously, I've got my breakdown of the game against the Cardinals. I think that we probably should not read too much into the game against the Cardinals. It is not a narrative-defining game. It's good that they got the win. I highlight some individual performances. I'll be doing that next week as well for, obviously, their game against the Falcons. But no bigger pieces or anything like that, except Luke is putting me through hell, is what's happening.
Don't sell yourself
Always.
short
Yep.
here. It sounds like you guys got some bangers coming out there. So that's awesome. Can't wait to go check that out. We'll be back Monday with the full crew. Check us out Sunday, though, immediately after the Vikings game. Another Vikings postcast breaking down all the instant reaction. Go like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to keep up with all the action. Luke, Arif, Ron Johnson. I'm Luke Inman on X, at Luke_Spin. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.